All right, so I think we got everything. I need to figure out what we're going to do for the fuel system on this car. So when it's back here, let's see. My fear is the battery dead. Dang. That was my fear, as long as I wanted to start it. Let me see what I want to do. I could roll it down the driveway, hook it up to the battery charger. I don't know if that's what I want to do or not. Let me see. I'll pick it back up wherever I decide. All right, so we got the truck. Figured I will show y'all how I was taught to hook up jumper cables. Maybe this might help somebody for a dead vehicle. So, a lot of this depends on proper grounding, and I am doing this with one hand. So, let's hook up our positive first, which might scare you, but it won't do nothing without the other side. Well, I guess it kind of could. It won't do anything on this side, since this car is mostly metal. So this side is now potentially hot, because if I'm touching anything grounded over here, you got to think I got a grounding point here, and you can see 3 or 4 grounds. And one of those grounds going to the chassis. So if I'm touching anything touching the chassis, which include the motor's grounded to the chassis somewhere, then this turns into pretty much, now this leads hot. So it's kind of not as hard to do on a newer vehicle because there's a lot of plastic, but you got to be mindful, especially these older cars. So here, I got my other positive. Just make sure you look at your post and not your colors, because they can be deceiving. A couple ways to do it on this truck. You hook up here, which you get really close into this area, or we could potentially hook up there, but I like it over here most of the time. So we'll do that. So here's where the tricky part is, that where I feel a lot of people screw up, which is, this is one way right here, is that the jumper cable will slip off. So just be mindful as you move these things around. And you see how this thing just shifted? We got a little bit of a coating here, but if you got some old wore out cables, that coating usually falls apart, and then you touch here and you got bad arc. So you can see on this truck is ground. You don't want to hook up to your battery because it's going to spark. That's just the way it is. And maybe not on this side because we haven't completed it over there, but on this side, you still want to treat it as if it would. So we're going to ground it to a grounding point on the engine. That way, when we spark, we're not sparking here, which is a direct connection to our battery. Our ECM, our ECU, our computer. This is how you fry computers, by hooking it directly here. I have seen several people do it, and I've never witnessed one, but I used to work at a Ford dealership, and every time they had an ECU issue is because they grounded it to the battery. So this is where I do get confused, because you should be able to do it on both. I personally like it on grounded on both points, like I said, on both like engine components, and we're sparking, as you can see. And that's, if we had that ground hooked up there, we would be sparking on it. So now we have connectivity, because if you're well grounded like we should have no problem. We don't need to hook it up to the battery. It's going to grab it like it needs to. Now there is certain diagrams I will show you, and that's where I say I was confused earlier, that you can hook it up to like the ground over here, but the battery over here. I try to give this a go first, and hopefully it works. Now we give it, if this battery is really dead, we're going to give it probably a couple of minutes just to give it somewhat of a charge here before we really crank down this starter that has a fuel pump. I think that's our relay for a fuel pump, or the fan. No, either way, we got relays and everything. We need everything to work together. So we just give it a little while to put a little charge in it, because otherwise you're just depending directly on these cables. All right, we're probably flat. on this one if I had to guess. Either this one or the other side. We got our Milwaukee portable tire pumper upper. But we got something in it. That ain't horrible. We'll go and top her off. It might be the other side. Oh, as we're waiting on the battery to charge, see about over here. Oh yeah, that one's flat. So let's go and go over here. This one don't look bad. This one don't look bad. So let's top off this one, pump up the other side. Oh, that wasn't bad, dang. We'll let it finish the other side, and then that's when we'll try to start the car, because it really doesn't do us any good to do that. All right, I'll let y'all know when it started. All right, so we got our tire topped off, which is the reason why the car would not move. That took about 2 or 3 minutes. We're still charging. So another thing to note when you're doing this is if you have 2 people, that helps, because a lot of times when you're at idle on vehicles, they're not putting out a lot of amperage or full voltage. So it does help if that person can give it like a high idle. But in this case, we don't have that. So you hear we got a solid start. Hopefully our tune is still in our Holly. Let's try starting it. So another thing to note when you start these vehicles, that you don't want to disconnect the battery immediately, because a lot of times the alternator needs to be able to pick up the charge, and having that other vehicle hooked up helps out greatly. So after you start your vehicle, just give it 2 minutes with that other jumper vehicle supporting it. Don't disconnect it immediately. Let it everything kind of get warmed up a little bit. It just helps save things in the future. So I'm gonna give this a minute, and then we'll see what happens. We'll go for a ride. All right, so disconnecting your jumpers. Go ahead, disconnect your negative first, and secure it to you somehow. So I'm gonna put it like under my underpit here, and then we'll disconnect it'd be nice to disconnect our other negative, but let's go ahead and complete this. So, and secure the other one somehow, so you're not dropping it, because these will arc, and that's going to send arcs over there too. So, and then once we get this other one disconnected, and carrying the phone is making this really difficult, now our circuit is disconnected. So really we can just be nonchalant about it, right? Because nothing is a complete circuit. And then we can grab this one, and now we have completed jumping off this vehicle, and we'll take it around the block. So when you get done jumping off your vehicle, just remember that that vehicle now needs to charge for a minute. So you're probably going to have to drive it around for like 15-20 minutes, or you're just going to wind up having to jump it off again. So just be aware of that. We're going to put this back in its location so we can use it next time. Sorry about that, I'm all one-handed here. And yeah, let's go take this around the block. All right, she's been idling for a minute now. Definitely steering wheel is a lot lighter than I like it to be. I plan on adding a fluid restrictor to it. So we're just gonna take her around the block. Hopefully we'll run out of gas. We need to do a filter change on it. We need to do and that's for the transmission, which actually I was gonna say we need one for the engine, but we really don't. Yeah, and the engine, if I could, maybe. I might as well just change all the fluids, right? Man, this engine's bad. It's my old engine, guys. With a stall converter in it, I mean, it'll tear my Trans Am up with that little 4.8. It is peppy. But, and we need to do a fuel regulator. As you can see, our fuel pressure's in the yellow right now because we're about 6 above where we should be. Should be at 58 psi. That's due to our regulator not doing what it's supposed to. Brakes on this thing is trash. But you know, truthfully, ooh, goodness, a lot of things moved in the back. It's probably just a brake booster because you can hear it leaking. It needs a tune. I don't know what's going on with where I'm at. Let me figure this out. Something's wrong with my transmission. It's like I'm not in the right gear or something. Let's see. No, I think it's just a stall. It's like I'm not shifting very well. Yeah, I ain't in high gear yet. It's odd. It's the first time really driving it in the cold weather. I'm gonna continue to cruise it, guys, and I'll give you a roll up when I get back. All right, we're back. Let's see. Yeah, I just don't think I'm used to this transmission. It's a 3-speed, pretty high stall. So, did well. Fun car to drive. Is just sloppy. Needs a rag joint. Needs steering gearbox. Needs the I think power steering, slow down, put a restrictor in the line, and then now I'm gonna get under the car and check to see what we got for fuel line, so we can put this fuel regulator on it. I already got the fuel regulator. I already got the fuel filter. That's the non-bypass style, and actually see how we're going to plumb up. Like, I'm trying to use the OEM lines because I don't want to run much rubber lines, but it's kind of getting complicated. So yeah, so it was a good drive around the block, and yeah, let me pop the hood, see what happens.